Welcome back to the OPEX Podcast, where fitness is explained. I am your host, Robbie Burke, and I'm joined on today's show once again by James Fitzgerald. On this episode, James and I discuss many topics. We get an update from James on what he has been currently working on. We discuss setting realistic goals for our clients. We discuss coaching burnout and work-life balance. And we also discuss the Functional Fitness Federation World Championships that will be taking place in London in October later this year. Guys, this was an absolutely outstanding episode with James. I know you're going to love it. Stay with us. Okay, Fitzy, we are live and we are recording. Thanks as always for making time, particularly that you're in Idaho on your holiday with your family. I appreciate it. I probably should have said out live. You're going to get stalkers. So he's in Idaho. He's down the mountain.
No, I don't mind. If you know where I am, you can come work out with me.
Great.
I'm sure if you're interested, you're probably into exercise. So
absolutely, you'll be his guinea pig. He goes, try this mixed model piece.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually not working out with me. I just want to use you, put you in my lab, because I really don't like working out with other people unless we're going to compete against one another.
Awesome stuff. So before we get into our topic today, which we agreed upon just literally 2 minutes ago, we're going to talk about setting realistic expectations for clients. You had a very good Facebook post out on that where there was some good conversation around that. Before we get into that, how are you? How have you been? What's new in your world? What's been going on in your mind and your brain? Where's your focus been lately?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm healthy. I'm enjoying the rest of the summer. Up here away from the desert, and enjoying some time with my family. Been exercising regularly, and been some of the projects that I've been on are putting together a mixed modal digital course, or course for mixed modal, which encompasses, basically everything that was in my brain over the past decade on just how to win at mixed modal and what's involved inside of it. Yeah, no, honestly, that's the ultimate goal in it, because, why propose to teach something if it's not going to be helpful for a whole ton of people in coaching and athleticism for the sport, So I want it to be almost like the super training of mixed modal, if that makes sense. Just that course and that booklet and that manual that people will go to, to kind of get those little insights that we'd always go back and look at SIF stuff to grab some knowledge bombs, So that's been the biggest project. What I've been doing, we've been finishing up the book, a book on professional fitness coaching and my story and how that falls into place. We just finally inked a deal with Brand X in terms of my part ownership within their company, and the partnership that OPEX and Brand X has just sealed a deal on. We're trying to put together a really solid foundation of what they have currently or already built in their ideas to really make an impact on youth and children fitness education. So we're pretty excited about that. And still taking care of and being a part of the day-to-day growth for all of our CCP coaches and what they're doing on course, our gyms and how they're growing, as well as the big dogs, and coaching people and just really helping those coaches do the best as possible online with individuals.
And also being a whopper dad and great husband.
Yeah, well, I started with that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
I didn't say I was a whopper of one, but I'm doing my job, It's
a whopper, yeah. That's
I like it. I'm good at it.
So a few things on that for me. So excited for that digital course. That's going to be unbelievable. The book.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's almost it's just so all encompassing. There's just so much. There's so much.
Can I ask a question? Because 4 years ago, I did like a mentorship and I filmed it, and like it's over 20 hours. And like a professional crew came in, and I know the guys well. They're good friends. They're excellent professionals, by the way. Like, so it's their full-time thing. Like, they're actually like a serious production business here now.
Yeah.
They were kind of in their growth and development back then. But like, do you know when you're like shooting a video and like I can see this in YouTube with the CCP, and it's just like, we're so into it because I've watched the videos back of myself and we're so into it, like, and all this, and I'm always wondering what's going through their heads, the production team, because they're not like as into like this whole fitness realm as we are. But I can remember one of the production crew, like when it was all said and done, like he was like talking about like lactic power and capacity, and he goes, I know all these terms because all I've been doing for the last 2 months is just editing your voice in my head over and over. So like, do you ever get that too? Like when you're at the whiteboard,
Oh yeah,
and like you think that they think that you're just crazy. It's particularly when you go, I think I need to do that one again. It's like, no, that was perfect. What was wrong? It's like, I could have said that a bit better. And they don't get it, but in your mind, like that could have been better.
Yeah. Well, man, we could have a whole show on that actually, but a couple of
with bloopers, that'd be great.
Yeah, the original gentleman that I worked with for CCP, his name is Michael Cardwell. Digital Brew, I think, is the company. Just as a shout out to his work, but
what a great name, by the way.
Yeah, fantastic, right? And just a superhuman. And of course, he had no concept of education and fitness, right? So we'd finish every shoot and like every little bit, like on, let's just say the section on water and nourishment, right? And he'd be like, we'd forget to turn off the film, right? Because he'd be like so interested, like watching me, like listening to what I was saying, as opposed to like getting the good shots, that afterwards he's like, that shit's fascinating. I didn't know that. I gotta up my water intake. And just imagine that went on for like 3 weeks in a row after every hit, right? So he left with this like monster brain of information on education for fitness, which he really loved. And then, as you know, Emma, we'd have some funny conversations. But an interesting point, Robbie, is that, I think that what I try to do over time for education is not that it's kind of necessary, but if I can't explain a lactic power, if that Emma can't understand, then I'm probably not doing my job. So I would use that as a way of like, although there's a human behind the camera, I would say afterwards, like, does that make sense, Emma? And she'd be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I get the progression. I understand the complexity, but also why you should do it that way, and then that would make me sleep better at night based upon it. But last interesting point, this is honest to God, first thing I thought about when you said that is, I think over time, people will be able to, and I don't know I go into deep holes on this one, but I really think it's going to happen, is that we'll be able to see or understand possibly what other people are thinking. Now, I know there's a long way to get there, but if you watch, certain Netflix shows, as well as the speed and evolution of virtual reality and artificial intelligence, I could just imagine you standing, up there speaking, and you having the opportunity to see like what's going on in that person's head while you're saying things, right? So you're talking about lactic power, and they're off thinking of like bunnies and grass, and sunshine.
Stop thinking about that. Stop thinking about my wife.
I didn't want to get into uncomfortable quarters, but you could just imagine what kind of things are going to be in that thought process when other people have access to your thoughts.
I don't know about the listeners, but Fitzy, I'm well used to your crazy thoughts and your
yeah, I think I'll just get locked up. I don't want anyone to see that because there's stuff that goes on upstairs that I just can't unfold.
So I meant to say to you there as well. So the digital course is going to be savage. And just for international listeners, Irish, we say savage means very good. Book, really looking forward to the books. It's always great to have something, in your hands as well. Yeah. I will say this, you are better looking than Mel Siff, so you already have that going for you. So that's a one-up in super training already.
Rest in peace, Mel.
Rest in peace, Mel. Yeah, it is a fine book. Even though, and I've said this, if we want to be a bit critical, some of the referencing in is very poor. Yeah. For instance, in the text, he's got Francis 88. I go to the bibliography at the back. It's not there.
Yeah. But Mel, if you ever listened to him or spoke to him, he's like, his head is like 6.
Yeah.
He's way over here. So you got to understand there's some looseness in that.
I only have one video presentation off Mel, and it's from the Swiss conference by
I was there.
Were you at that?
I was there.
The one on biomechanics. That was the one he done. Mm-hmm. And he calls Eric he calls Eric Serrano up to the stage, and he's no idea who Eric Serrano is. And when I was watching this, I was like, this is so surreal. He's like he's treating Eric Serrano as if he's just like someone attending the course. He doesn't even know like he's there to lecture.
Yep.
It was so funny. And then final thing before we get into our conversation, you were just saying there about CCP and our coaches. One thing I've noticed is that like it's really exploding in terms of like interaction on the forums and some of the questions. Some of the guys are putting in there, like they're really well, like even like, because I've come from more of a strength and conditioning world than the fitness world, you know, or sort of the world that OPEX has evolved in. Like I've only really got into the last 12 to 18 months and really started studying it since I got into CCP level 1 and started this year. Like even I'm reading some of those threads and I'm like, that's a really good program. And I'm a little bit lost with some of the topics, and there's some really, really smart guys asking some good questions in there.
Yeah, I'm really happy about that.
And girls too, just and girls.
Yeah. I think you meant everyone, but based on that. But I'm really happy about that, because it's not only shows that we're attracting the right kind of audience to ask those things, but also the fact that we are giving off an energy that critical questions should be asked.
And
I think that's helpful for everyone, no matter, because as sitting on this side of the fence, when I put this on, and when we like put something into the wireframes and on paper, it seems like truth, right? But the reason why we put that on paper and in the videos is that we need to have heuristics and a base support, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge with that is that there's always a way that someone else will think of it differently, right? And so those critical thinking is what we want and honor. And I would agree with you. I've seen more of it over the past little while, which will only lead to growth. Now, what growth means, it doesn't mean like 6 times as many coaches, but it certainly will up-level the education for fitness coaching.
And the one thing I sort of noticed too is that the questions they seem a lot more well studied, and they're coming from people who are a little more well read. Because like initially, if I go back to some of the older questions, and this is even just this isn't even just limited to OPEX and CCP courses. I've seen this with multiple courses I've been involved in. Like people start asking questions, they're like that's a cart way before horse. Like people asking about like functional testing and like looking at gut bios. You know what I mean? It's just like, with us, it's just like, the BLGs, like first, that kind of thing I'm trying to think of, or people asking like just way too complicated questions when it's like, have you looked into this first? Like I'm seeing less people actually jumping the gun, which is a good thing. So, because obviously they're starting to realize here, there's principles here and there's big rocks that we need to take care of first. I don't know if you're noticing a similar trend there.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if I'm saying that it's a great noticing on your part, because I like the fact that people are there with their questioning, but I would say that it is a great noticing on your part that you're seeing that. I think that too, just to try to explain, why that was the way it was before, is that the fitness, community, let's say for coaching as well, is changing very rapidly. It's a very malleable, plastic, kind of organized thing. And, although I keep saying that I think it's going to take a long time to make large impacts, I think that the coaches are finally, challenging notions. And they're doing that even internally in OPEX, which is good, right? Because that's what I say that all the time, right? I mean, but I think where those questions may have come from before was really from a place of like, I just want to be involved, so I'll just ask something to make it seem like I'm smart. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now the coach is going, just a second now. I want to see some evidence of what you mean when you say that keto is going to do this, And those are great questions. And if more and more coaches are thinking like that, where they're taking a second now to go, just a second, right? Let me think about the principles. Let me think about the BLGs. Let me think about, then I think we're in a good spot. I think that's a good sign for fitness overall too.
Definitely. Okay, we're into our topic, but there is one more thing, and this is a really good conversation, because this is actually a question I have wanted to ask you. Again, just before we get into our topic on setting realistic.
Well, maybe this is just an update show.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
Right, that's what's going on. Let's update people.
One thing I really wanted to ask you about is groupthink. Okay, and
is what? Sorry,
groupthink. So so groupthink essentially is a concept that like when everyone is sort of in the same bubble, they just agree on all the same thing and they don't challenge each
Oh
other.
yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
got it.
So one thing I do notice sometimes with some of the guys within the OPEX system is they sound really like you a lot of the time. Like they use similar words. It's like, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And like, do you ever think that could fall into the danger that they may step away from being more critical thinking for themselves and kind of maybe almost blindly accepting sometimes what you say?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if you look back at my history as well, we all use the language that's most current of what we really believe are some truths, right? So I just see what they're saying as what they really believe in as truth. It's just that they haven't formulated their own planning on language. So that doesn't make it incorrect or make it an echo chamber. It just means that that's the only way. For example, listen to Sam Harris the other day. He had a great podcast, by the way, with this lady who wrote Hormonal, and she's a deep researcher on biological hormonal differentiation and sex and gender, et cetera. Just very powerful. I kind of love that. I really love that stuff, obviously for biology purposes. But he said something, and I'm giving you an example of that echo chamber and group thought. He said something that I'm sure I've never heard the way it's explained before, but he said it in a language that I can only say it the exact same way he said it in order for me to understand it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Say it in conversation with you, that may seem to be biased thinking or group thought mentality, or it may just be someone had given me the power to create a language around something that I couldn't understand, right? But now that he said it that way, I don't know any other way to say it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Until I experience it enough where I create my own language around it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a really good answer. I'm not just saying it, but that actually is a very good answer. Because I've gone through similar processes myself in that if you have no frame of reference for a certain concept and then you're first introduced to it, obviously that's going to be your go-to semantics to explain it until maybe you hear it a different way that might potentially sound a little better, or you get to a place where you formulate such a foundation of knowledge that you can nearly say it in your own way that you think makes a little more sense.
Exactly. And that's why I call it principles.
Yes.
Right? They're not answers, they're principles. So, I want, any of our coaches in 6 years to say something in their own language, to be questioned on it, and then realize that I said that same thing 15 years ago. Right? So they have to go through the experience in order to validate their own experiences itself over time, It's just like you and I talk about all the time, right? You and I love that, where it's like, oh yeah, that coach said that, 20 years ago.
That's exactly
like a Charlie Francis context, right? On high-low or systems of development. It's like they said that. And I guarantee you someone said something to Charlie 20 years prior to that made him go, okay, that's a language that makes me make sense of it. And all these systems have been around forever. They just formulate like Taleb's way, right? In anti-fragility. They just formulate in a way with different languages that just makes sense to us over time.
But remember the episode where I pulled that quote from Verkhoshansky, where he was talking about, applying a high intensity stimulus to an organism that isn't ready. And I was like, and he had a different wording for it, but I was like, that's maximum physical potential. That's the concept James talks about, but it's just different wording. Yeah. So
exactly. And I guarantee you, I probably read that in mid-90s.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't remember that I read it, and then it's just like, it's just in my head, like, my gosh, that just, it makes sense. And I just call it something else, but really it's language.
It planted a seed, but it grew into something different in your garden.
Yeah, that's right. Great Irish way of putting it.
Telling you, I'm not just good looks, people.
They can't even see you. You can't see your pinkish hue on your cheeks.
Very subjective. I told you that's actually ketchup. I was eating it on, and I'm a licker of the plate. It happens sometimes. So into setting client expectations, there was a very good thread on your Facebook page, and there was some good interaction on that. And I think it's a very timely conversation, because. Yeah. I'm actually hearing it in a few places on the Mind Muscle Project.
It's timely due to reality.
Yeah.
Right.
On the
Mind what's real today? Kardashians is reality. Or TV shows are reality. So
On the My Muscle project, when the guys interviewed actually Michelle from DecaComp, who I'll be having as a guest as well, as I was telling you before we copped online, that this concept came to about setting realistic client expectations. She had her answer on that, and I'll get her to expand that when we have her on our podcast. But yeah, get into that and just wrap on that for a while, because I know it's another area, like so many, that you are very vested in and have a lot of thoughts about.
Yeah. Well, what's the driving question or interest?
So setting realistic client expectations. So I suppose,
or we can create context to what the Facebook post is about first, and then.
Oh, well, I mean, the concept from the post was that you were saying, what I took from it, from my perception, was about
for coaches to have the courage, right?
The courage to say the truth in terms of, again, saying expectations. And again, I suppose what drives that, and you said this a lot of time, is the assessment. And that's your truth. And one thing for you to take this away is, this actually came into my head today. And actually, I have to say to you, well done on this point, because it drove something home for me, is that assessment is where someone is right now. Okay, and the reason I bring that up is I actually had a client that I was programming for, James, right? And he was having shin splint issues. And I've programmed for this guy before, but it was a while back. And I made such a stupid mistake. I never asked him his body weight. He'd put on 10 kilos since we last... No, he wasn't fat. He just put on 10 kilos of muscle from training. Yeah. But he hadn't been running. He was doing a shit ton of weightlifting and all that. And we were like, what's up with this fucking shin splints? I was like, how are your shins? All right, don't do your tempo runs. We'll use mixed modal methods. And then, he just goes to me one day, he was talking about his diet and all that. I was like, what do you weigh now? And he was like, oh, I'm about 90 kilo. I was like, 90 kilo? I was like, you were probably 82 when I saw you last week. Yeah, I was like, oh. So it was just that. And then, so when you were like, assessment is where you are now, and how many times have we done that? What's your max squat? 200 kilo? Yeah. When did you do that? Oh, 4 years ago. Yeah. What's it now? Oh, it's 160. Yeah. That's a big difference.
I still have a 485 deadlift too.
Yeah. So so again, our question is setting realistic client expectations, and I just wanted to add that point, that I was really appreciated that point where you kind of just drove it home. Again, it's something that you do know, but you weren't putting it to the forefront as much as you should. Is like, where are you now? And assessment is truth. And it's like Gray Cook says, the FMS. Like, even if you move like shit, it doesn't make you a bad person. And that's your thing too with the assessment. You're like, listen, assessment is just telling you where you are now. It's not like your destiny.
I know the fact that we have to even have to say, include morality inside of that is really a sad state of affairs.
Oh, I know. I'm sure. Listen,
really is sad. Just to start, it's man. Anyways, a whole other time. But wow, it's and also too that's I also want to include the conversation around the wonderment and power around science and experimentation and the scientific method. I really think that's being pushed really, further and further away from professional fitness coaching. And that's really the driving thing underneath that. But when I make commentary on, mentioning to coaches to have enough courage, I start with that because I know the pain that's involved in a coach, even, formulating an idea that creates the best communication towards the client on what they really think about their expectations. Like, I understand the pain, right? I've been there. I've coached thousands of coaches with that pain. I've rehabbed thousands of coaches out of their brain, their thinking around that pain. So I know that it does take courage. It takes courage to say, I really think you may not get there as fast as you think you will. Now, where the challenge occurs inside of that is from two different areas. Number one, you may not even know what the speed of adaptation is, right? Number two is this really unhealthy push for woo-woo behavioral methods only within professional fitness, and a loss of scientific method. So the first one we'll hit on is that some people actually don't know how fast someone will adapt, right? We don't know that. Now, in what's at play there is that the client comes in, and I use the example of getting an answer on Google in 10 seconds, but it's more than just that. Like, they shit on in porcelain, and they have phones, and the car can take them, 100 miles an hour. And I can give you 6,000 more examples of how fast things have been improving over the past 10 years. And humans have connected this to how everything progresses, right? You combine that with their reality is video games, Facebook, like false connection with individuals. And you have a whopper of behaviors that comes in, right? Like a whopper of behaviors. So when you say you're not going to get that dip for like 9 months, that you see, who alarms up on the Facebook page is like, who are you to tell someone they're not going to get a dip? Support that person with love and compassion. It's like, I didn't say I didn't love the person or I didn't care for the person.
Yeah.
But I'll be damned if I'm going to tell them they're going to get a dip in a couple of weeks.
That's
right.
Even, but that's
when
Sean,
I know
that's
full
Sean
well.
Walker.
I know full well. Me personally, I know full well that it's a lie. Right. That I'm lying to that person based upon the expectation. So my whole point was just that you have to recognize that, number one, there is a place for the scientific method, and there's no place for only love and compassion inside of what we consider to be the path, for improvements in physical fitness. And the thing that I use for some coaches that, and I made mention of it, is that fake it till you make it. Like, if you don't know, how fast someone will progress, number one, use your gut instinct, right? Because I think humans, if they actually take a time to sit back, right, just to sit alone as a coach for 20 minutes and go, is that really going to be possible? Like, your gut will tell you, if that's possible. Then if you don't even have that, if you don't have intuition around how fast they're going to do it, do your fucking research, right? Do your research. There is 6 million data points out there. Why don't you ask me, right? Why don't you email and ask me? Why don't you search the interwebs? Why don't you get on forums? Why don't you ask the question to Google? Like there's so much data out there on actual biological physical adaptation and progression. But all they see is what's on Instagram, Facebook, reality TV. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh my gosh, she looked like that, and then she had surgery and she looked like that. It's like, oh, well, we can do that. It's like, no, you can't. It's not surgery. This is actual learned adaptation process to impose demands that people have to go through. So I think that there's a whole host of emotional things inside of that along with economical, we haven't even mentioned that. Like, so many coaches are afraid to tell people the truth because they'll just go down the street to someone else. And that I'm also empathetic to that too. I mean, I'm doing my part to help that. So the society as a whole recognizes the professionalism of fitness coaching and the power of it. But I'm empathetic to that coach who's like, I'll kind of halfway lie to kind of keep them aboard, and I'll promise these expectations, but I'm just telling you, you don't want to be surrounded by 100% of your clients in which you were, unauthentic about the direction. And the only ones that stay around are the unicorns, right? The 3 or 4% who just can respond to all those stimuli and keep improving. Yet the rest of them, you're trying to figure out, maybe it's your protein intake. Maybe it's this program we need to do. It's like, no, at the front, you could have just said, it's probably going to take 2 years for you to do that. So are you still interested?
Yeah. Sorry, I was cutting into there. What popped into my head was that, when the coach is, oh, you're not supporting this person getting their dip, or but actually
you are supporting them by telling them the truth.
Yeah, exactly. You actually are, because otherwise you're just enabling failure, and in the long run, that's going to bite you back like way more than if you were just authentic up front and was like.
Well, just think about the kind of relationship you're building, Robbie.
Yeah.
Right. Think of and this is where obviously I'm definitely more biased, but you're just treating fitness unprofessionally and incorrectly. You're not honoring fitness, because fitness has a biological component to it, right? And it's also around expression physically, so we can somewhat figure out exactly what we want to do, right? So it's a medium for a lot of people working towards their highest priorities. and you're really not treating it appropriately by getting on board with that, by criticizing bad, unrealistic ideas.
Rape and pillage, as you called it.
Yeah.
And I loved your other analogy where you're like, imagine I turned around to you and I said, we can have a baby in 3 months. You're like, you just can't fast track biology, people.
No, well, not for a really long period of time. It's people are trying, but it's not going to work.
So
not going to work.
You said that you've
There's so many examples of that too. That I don't know.
I know.
I just love the reproduction one, but it is what it is.
I think that just drives it home really well. Like, when we're talking about the high intensity model, and you're just like, okay, so we're gonna start having babies now in 3 months. You're like, no. He's like, so why are we fast tracking fitness?
Yeah. What's the hurry?
Yeah. Well, I have a wedding and tough shit. You said there as well that you've rehabbed many coaches, from this, and it's actually it brings me back to, I just finished that book that Mike Lee recommended. Well, sorry, I finished actually a while back. Being Mortal by Atul Gandhi. I hope I'm pronouncing his surname right, but the guy who wrote the Checklist Manifesto. So Being Mortal was the name of the book. And essentially, he describes the same concept in medicine, but it's when doctors are giving terminal diagnosis, and he says they always default to lying. So, like when the person's like, "So, like, what do you think my chances are?" They're like, "Oh, like as good as any," And in the mind, they're like, "You have no hope. I have no hope." And he's just like, and he said while even he was writing this book and talking about this concept that doctors. So essentially, one of the tenets in the book is that doctors are not taught in medical school how to gracefully help people die. They just they avoid it because they're not comfortable with it. And so he was kind of saying, like you said there, in terms of coaches not being able to set realistic expectations for clients, and they need to be rehabbed from that. He's like, doctors essentially need to be rehabbed out of this mindset. And he was just like, even while he was writing the book, James, he was like, I actually had like patients in today, and I still couldn't like get into the habit of like being honest. He was just like, I still defaulted. I still just went back to default mode because it was just an easier thing to do at the time.
Yeah. Most times we just don't have time, Robbie. That's it. The system is not set up for it. You can't, because you can just imagine all the things you have to rewrite, and go backwards.
Oh, unbelievable.
You could just imagine how many lies you have to fix, how anxious a coach could be if they have like 60 clients, and there's a number of little lies in all of those. Like that just like exhausts me. Right. But I do understand the pain involved, and because I've been there before as well. Right. And when it sounds like lie, it sounds like, it's like an immoral thing, but they were lies, for different reasons. And so I understand that. And what I meant by rehabbing those coaches is to just allow them to understand the pain that's involved, not only in that process of jumping on board with unrealistic expectations, but also just making them feel okay that, number one, I've been there before, so I mirrored it. And then number two, it gives them a liberation, right? It frees them of this pain around trying to make everyone happy, get on board, do the dance. And that's what I meant by like just rehabbing, because I had to rewire the coach's brain, because no one ever told them like, it's okay to tell that person the truth, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, like no one has ever told me, I have the okay to do that. And I was like, well, I want you to practice it. Do it a little bit this week with a couple of people. And then let's give me some feedback, and then we'll work from there. And most times they come back, they're like, oh, it's so liberating. Like I feel so free, and I think it's, it's just, we're just trying to all be a part of one another. We're trying to work things out and be happy and make things clear. But when it comes down to fitness, and then when there's economy connected to it and expectations of a relationship, it's really important. Although you're not sleeping with them, it's really important to have clear expectations.
Just moving on from that then too, because just what comes to my mind is, if you are doing a good, thorough assessment, like how did this like sort of,
that should point you in the right direction.
How did this need to, if you want to call it, line? Like how does
it doesn't come up. It doesn't come up like that. That's the thing. But Robbie, assessment is the truth, right? Yes. So you're not going to assess if you don't want to see the truth.
Yeah, this is the point I'm getting to, is that like so many times the client just walks in and it's just like, sign here. Oh yeah, you start Monday. And it's like, there was no entry point. There was no assessment. There was no, to give a snapshot of where
Yeah.
somebody was.
So they say, I want to, get here with lean mass and fat mass, right? We'll just take two like simple little prescriptions of it. Okay, design a program, get started, and measure it in 10 days, right? And look at what their previous history was of success with exactly what they want to do. Like, just look at two things, right? So if you go back and just use an example, you don't even have to use weight loss, but you could ask them, like, where have you decided to dig your heels in, do something consistently for like a couple of years in a row, and you were really successful at it? And the client goes, yeah, I've never done that. It's like, how do you expect to do this consistently for 3 months in a row, right? Of exercise and good nutritional habits. Like, that's what the client, you don't have to say that like an asshole, but that's what the client hears back, is like, oh, interesting. So what you're telling me is that you've set a goal and you've never completed it. That's basically what the client hears back, right? So you just use that as an example, along with, like, we, in the scientific method, point A, point B, point C. If you have point A to point B and point C, you can go, oh, well, this is the progression that we're making based upon what's inside the system of progression, right? So if you go from point A to point B in 10 days and they're like, oh, I couldn't work out this weekend, and actually, I eat like crap a couple days, but we'll start back up. You just go, okay, we had point A, we now have a point B, and you've been flat. I just want to let you know, right? I just want to let you know, like, we said we want a progression, but in 10 days, you've been flatlined. And when I discuss even those things, especially on that, I don't even know what side of the column is, but so many people want to walk away from that, right? They want to run from it. Right. And they're just like, just hold them close and tell them they're still loved. It's like, oh, that's cool, but you're not going to get any progression based upon what they said they wanted to do. So It's your job. That's my point at the end of the comment in Facebook post was, it's your job on behalf of fitness, global fitness and professional coaches, your job to challenge that and to show the truth in that assessment.
Just coming off that concept then too, I've heard you speak about this before, and I actually love this, is where you spoke about the highest form of caring for a client is detached caring. And I can remember when you mentioned that on, it was so funny. I can like right now, I think it was with the Mind Muscle Project guys. I think it was one of their episodes, or it might have been the Doc and Jock show. It was one of those. And when you said it, yeah, actually, I think it was Doc and Jock. When you said it, you were like, "Does that make sense?" And they were like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." So then you had to explain it, and you said, so a person who does not, the example you gave was great. The person where you don't give detached caring is a person where, like, you're educated about water and sleep, and then you watch them walk out to their car, and then they've just gone around the corner, you're texting me, you're taking your water, and then the next day they don't show up or they miss something, you're like, oh, that's my fault. You're too involved in the process. You're being too much of an enabler and a crutch to them. Whereas true caring is where, like, you just give it to them and then let them sort of have self-reliance with it. So it kind of just it filtered in my mind from that kind of process too, of giving them feedback with you're flatlining here, and then it's your job to kind of be able to inspire them to want to do this, rather than you have to be like the sort of the bad cop all the time saying, well,
yes, we discuss it in language for coaching on trying to build the highest amount of trust with someone involves an aspect of caring. Now, when we say care, that's where it goes wrong, Robbie. People think of care as being, enveloped on top of the person, right? And then, there would be commentary on people's behaviors and perspectives on, I care too much. Well, my question then would be, well, what do you mean by caring? And then it kind of unfolds like what their perception is of caring. Really, it's not that they care too much. It's that they only know enabling relationships because it makes them feel worthy. And that's a whole other rehabilitative thing on behalf of the coach. But the highest form of caring in the end is to build the biggest amount of trust in the relationship, right? So people, when you care, it's not about you caring about the client. It's about the client and the coach caring to the highest order about your relationship. So the mediator is the relationship. That's the medium, right? That's the middle of what you want to care the most about. We care the most about a relationship. On behalf of a coach, you can't be so attached to that relationship that it pulls you away from doing what you need to do to support that person. So that means that it's not like directly next to the person, i.e. what you were giving an example of. It's actually further and further away. Why? Because the highest form of trust and the greatest relationship that's built is one in which the client over time creates this autonomous atmosphere for their future in fitness and their longevity and lifestyle. And so it's hard for a coach to recognize, because they're saying, so what you're telling me long term is that the client doesn't need you. It's like, yeah, that's what fitness relationships are built for, right? They're built to get rid of one another, because you're trying to teach people to fish for themselves. It's not an individualistic, existence idea. You know what I'm saying? It's just based upon just trying to get that person to fend for themselves within fitness to the highest order possible, to do whatever they want to do in fitness. So that, whatever they want to do in life through fitness. But that in itself means that you can't scale more and more caring per person for your lifetime as a coach. You will die and get burned. Yeah. And so many coaches I've had to, help try to explain that. And then there's two things that happen, unfortunately, in there. Well, fortunate is there's a big learning, but Robbie, sometimes coaches recognize that they're in all of their relationships with clients for drama, for purposes of enabling, for nurturing, because it's their highest priority, right, to do those things. But you can see what's happened is they've surrounded themselves by everyone who needs them to, care really hard for them. And so then clients, coaches come to me and say, man, I'm just so gassed. I think I just care too much. And when they say that, is generally a good, 60, 90-minute sit down session to try to rethink their idea around what it could be. I was going to go hit a second point for it, but that's basically the most important thing besides of caring too much, that there has to be the sweet spot in that. And we want to believe that the highest caring is for the relationship. And then secondly, it's actually detaching yourself more and more over time, because that creates self-responsibility on behalf of the client.
Do you know what? There's so much of gold in that question, or in that answer to that question, because so much of it resonates to me. And the first thing that comes into my head, and she won't ever listen to this, but it's my mother. And for whatever reason, this sort of like this sort of like, these two words are just like, they're like just ringing in my head right now. And it's like mother syndrome. Do you ever know, it's like that thing where the mother, like, she puts everyone else before herself, and then she just completely burns out, and then like she like cracks and she plays the big like victim role. I do everything for everyone, but secretly she loves serving others, because she gets like a reward effect for that in whatever chemical way it is in the brain, and it gives her self-worth on the planet. But to me, like that's a similar thing. If you're seeing that action in a coach, it just reminds me of a lot of mothers who do that. They just basically put everyone before themselves, and then like 20, 30, 40 years later, they're just gassed, fucked, whatever comes into their life, then, and then they become so resentful then as they get older. Now, my mother's not resentful, but I'm just saying, you can see this in some other, and I'm not being sexist towards females. It's just something I'm saying. It's a feminist trait, maybe more so than anything else.
Well, no, you can navigate through the masculine and feminine continuum, and there's no gender connected to that, where people really have a really high priority and a calling for nurturing. But, there's a bunch of different ways you can call it, right? Because when you say nurturing, folks are like, oh, that's mama and child. It's like, no, there's numerous individuals, on this planet, 12-year-old female, 65-year-old male, that are really, powerful at that. They feel it in their essence. But Robbie, the area where we could create even a conversation on, the burnt out, is that if you're really aligned correctly, then you should not get burnt.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So there's numerous examples of people who are completely inspired and create increases in energy from doing that for other people, or nurturing or helping, right? So, and let's take an example, and I hope it's not an uncomfortable one for people, but, you decide to travel to Africa and spend 4 weeks there building homes, right? And by the end of I'm just exhausted. Like man, what an experience, right? And then you're looking back on it, in terms of what the purpose was for doing it. And you come to recognition that it was just an incorrect alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And then there could be other people that go there that, don't want to leave. I was trying to give an analogy of, the alignment where people would think that it's it's a correct alignment that leads to higher purpose, but you shouldn't really be gassed based upon that. It should be so inspiring that it's energizing.
But a few things there. So going back to when you were saying some people are afraid to teach their clients to fish because they're afraid that they'll leave. But like one thing Jim talks about, and obviously you talk about this, is that your clients generally, like, if you go about this this continuum correctly, humans are dynamic organisms where our priorities and goals will change over the journey of our lives. So because priorities and values change, it means that your clients are always going to need, your experience and help to some degree on their journey. So like that's one reason why they would stay around. But the other thing too is they're just in terms of making sure that you're aligned to a vocation or a passion. Again, the fact that your priorities and values change over the course of your life means that what currently fulfills you at one certain moment in your life may not be what will fulfill you in the future. Mm-hmm. And one thing I see this in, like, this is resonating with so much of me too, is I have a lot of friends, and you do too, I'd imagine. I have a lot of friends in professional sports, like with professional sports organizations. And when you look from the outside in, everyone's like, oh, wouldn't you love to work for that sport organization? I say that it's unreal. And then when you get the like deep down to conversations, these guys who are in these head coach positions, they're not happy. Mm-hmm. They're not fulfilled mentally, emotionally, physically. Like that example you gave of the person who went to Africa for 4 weeks and they're like, I'm just tired. Knackered all the time. And what ends up happening, I see, James, and again, love you to give your perspective of this, you end up, it goes back to what I was saying about the mammy syndrome, you end up becoming resentful. Like what you used to love, you now start to hate it. Yeah. And I make a joke now, James, and I have to thank you for this, because you actually gave me the courage to actually come out and say this. Now, I never actually said it to you, but it was just through our conversations where I actually turn around and I start to say, I actually don't love coaching more than I love learning and educating others. And like, is that okay to say? Because I was afraid in my mind, like, people were like, oh, he doesn't want to grind 10 hours. And then I was like, yeah, actually I don't, because I love coaching too much to end up resenting it. Like I can coach very well in small qualities, whether it's an off-season period or maybe 1-2 hours a day, but I am not a person who's going to stand on the floor for 12 hours and then end up doing this, James. Oh, Jesus, what you do today, James? I was 12 hours, man, on the floor. 12 hours. Like, I throw my suffering in your face to play the game one-upsmanship. Even if I don't consciously mean to it, I'm still doing it because I suffered more, James. I have more self-worth in this world. And, it just becomes this big, as I say, dick measure competition among the males, and obviously just female coaches in there as well. But it's just this game of one-upsmanship. And again, they just end up resenting something they used to love, and they fail to realize, listen, what used to fulfill you is no longer fulfilling you, and you need to continue on your journey and seek out the next path in your journey.
Yeah, and you're in control of that. So it could still be coaching on the floor for 6 hours over time. But when it was first inspiring for a couple of years, you may need to keep the same vocation. I'll just offer a different idea. You may not need to change the vocation, but you may need to change the situation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what's inside that coaching? Maybe you change your atmosphere, So I was, in my early part of career, I was very hands-on and very controlling in my own mind, right? Not to everyone else, but it could be perceived that way, definitely, because I wanted things done right, where now I like to just being the person who just organizes the orchestra. So when I'm on the floor coaching, I just want to make sure everything in the entire gym and every organism is working together in unison, because I believe that will be, in essence, what creates the greatest zone so that everyone can bubble up in progression, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm like one-on-one with someone for 2 hours. That to me, that's not as fulfilling anymore, to use your example. So, but you can see I was still coaching for 2 hours. That's my point, is that you need to learn how to transition that over time. That may even be backwards. You may be the orchestra component and you may revert back to going back to one person for 2 hours over time, but it's still the exact same thing. So very powerful noticing on your behalf for that. And then you can recognize the alignments do change and then get ready to kind of shift with clients on that.
And again, I resonate so much what you said there, because I'm even feeling that sort of ebb and flow that, again, we don't want to get into this linear thought process that, like, so someone could listen and go, okay, so it's okay to be fulfilled and then maybe find something that's slightly different to fulfill us again and again. and then think that you actually can't go back to an original fulfillment. Because again, because even lately, like even though like I haven't been coached as much, like in my mind, like I think I really want to start coaching a little more again. So like but like it's okay to have like it's not this. So you're like it isn't this linear line that just goes from A to B. It's more like a continual circle. It feeds. It's a feedback loop. And I think that's important. And just what you said there, like really resonating in terms of I wasn't there for 2 hours, but like that's not to say that I mightn't go back one day and be like, well, that was fulfilling 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives people hope on what it looks like. Because the essence is they still love coaching, right? Yeah. It's just you're gonna wear a different cloak, every couple of years based upon that. Also want folks to think about I think the biggest fallacy that gets a lot of folks into trouble is their own experiences in fitness and then them wanting to help other people with that same experience, right? So that's where all the alignment is incorrect. And possibly where you talked about those coaches, professional coaches, are doing it for the wrong reason, right? So they probably thought that, they're going to be able to help build a system and, really put their impact on winning and whatnot. And then they get inside, they're like, I'm just following orders, and I'm not creative whatsoever. So you could take, I actually have no idea, but Bill Belichick is not going to be around that long if he doesn't enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So and of course wins and losses, of course, certainly help it, and summertime opportunities. But you get what I'm saying is that he's probably fulfilled. Like deep inside, there's some fulfillment. Otherwise, he wouldn't be there. You could take other professional coaches and say, you can just see them, right? They put on weight, they get so unhealthy. Yeah. It's probably, although it's uncomfortable to talk about, it's probably the wrong alignment. Like you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? Yeah. If it pulls you away from what would be considered general health measures, healthy behaviors, right? If it does that, and there's a lot to be discussed on that in sport politics and the purpose of sport and et cetera. But something for people to think about, that they can be in the same skin for like 30 years and be okay. It's just that it's going to change a little bit and be okay with that over time. Yeah.
Again, a lot of what you said there resonates too. Cause and that's not to say, as you said there, like with the Bill Belichick example, that's not to say there isn't guys in pro sports who are still thriving off of them and they are mentally, physically, emotionally healthy and everything's in balance. But just two things in that is that this is why you often see like high school coaches or like coaches of like just volunteer coaches of teams who do an outstanding job and they love it and they're so fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And like people are like, do you ever think about like, did you never want to go into pro sports? And they're like, no, impact I can have on these young kids. And I get to like, they mightn't say this, but they're like, I'm in full charge of this whole program.
Yeah. That's what they won't tell you, right?
Yeah.
They're repressing that. It's almost like our parents, your mom and my mom. It's like they'll repress that because they're not, the Irish Catholic told them they're not supposed to say it, right? It's like, it's okay, actually, if you're doing this out of self-interest. I call it, self-preservation, or I call it beautiful alignment of priorities.
Yes.
It's just that no one wants to say that. It's like, who are you to say that you're loving this because you control all these kids in your entire program, until you sit in their shoes. They're like, actually, this is fantastic. Yes. Like, I love doing this. And you make an impact on some young children. I mean, gosh.
That's the exact point I was getting to. And like the word that's in my head, or the words in my head right now, is no judgment to that. That's perfect, because the alignment's there, and it's like proper manipulation. Like, because people hear the word manipulation, they always nearly automatically think it's a negative thing. It's like you can manipulate like for very good things, like make people have more belief in themselves. But I see that, and a really good, I'll send it to you because it's only about 10-11 minutes. Really good documentary on Richmond Football Club, who won the Australian Rules Football Premiership last year. They finished 13th the year before, and it's really good. Like, so it's interviewing a few of the players.
Wow. I would enjoy that.
Interviewing a few of the players, but the head coach, right? And this is what got me into it, was they're interviewing the head coach, and the head coach is just like, he says like, I went home to my wife one day, and she's just like, I don't like being around you. You're just not a nice person to be around. And he's like, that was the day it hit me, and I was just like, I'm not the person I want to be. I'm not the coach I want to be. And he says our only priority with the players coming into this season, 2017 season, was that we wanted players just to smile and love the process, and that was it. There was no talk about winning. Nothing. Went down, won the Premiership from finishing 13th, 13th out of 18 teams the year before. And you can tell, like, for all the players, like the interviews, that they were just like so connected.
So no, that's a spoiler alert. But did he keep his relationship?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was no, there wasn't a divorce there, but
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes that gets skewed. It's like, you forget that there's numerous priorities, right, in someone's life, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, and you recognize that, that person may have had injected values from society, religious values, friendship, peers, generational, you know, that is embedded in their head is like if your partner and your significant other says that there's an issue there, all of a sudden now there needs to be a shift in priorities. But
yeah,
this is the uncomfortable point back to self-interest. So back to my point, which is why it sounded so great in the end. It's a great story to finish with, that they basically just took it all off and they kind of just went into a great flow state. Is that in some cases people make those critical decisions because someone else has injected a value inside of them. You know what I'm saying? Where that coach may have been quote unquote an asshole in the relationship, but when you saw them coaching, they were completely fulfilled and alive. You see that? So
yeah,
that's where the injection of other values and what is healthy in the end, right? And in the end, which is why I wanted to know about the relationship. If the relationship was sustainable, he was happy, a better person to be around, their team succeeded. Obviously, there was something great about the alignment that happened there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's more it is more the latter case that you've alluded to there, in terms of like the job was making him miserable, and as he went home, he was miserable. Do you know what I mean? And he was like,
Got it.
and then he was like, it's again, it comes back to like Viktor Franklin, that you are in control of how you perceive any type of environment. So like he says, I'm letting myself be miserable. Like I'm being a slave environment rather than I'm choosing to be miserable. And he's like, so the only thing we had coming into the season was happy players, love the process. And he's like, I gotta wear that from the front. Like, and by the way, it was their first championship in 36 years, I believe, in the documentary. But there's also another really good one, and I'll send it to you too, because I really like this guy, even though they're the worst team in the AFL, Carlton.
Carlton?
Carlton's the name of the football club, but
Carlton.
it's called The Journey, and there's season 1, and it's 3 episodes with 40 minutes long, and then there's season 2, and they're 7 episodes, but they're 20 minutes long. But it's basically just like the inner workings of the club. But the head coach, Brendan Bolton, I think you'll really like him. Just like, I just feel so sorry for them that like they're young and inexperienced, like, so they're not winning a lot. But just like his whole outlook in coaching, I think is just fabulous. He's so well balanced. Like, he'd be telling boys home to the family, like, and just stuff they're doing. And he brought in this coach who's like 61 years, and he'd been with numerous teams in the AFL, and he spoke at one of the last episodes, and he was retiring, and he just said, like, only for Brendan Bolton, he says, I was turned into that bitter old bastard of a coach. And he said, do you know what's made, because everyone's like, oh, that, like the 61-year-old, I was like, oh, he's great, he's so lovable, he's a great old man. And everyone was like couldn't believe that, like, that some people thought he was an asshole at previous jobs and all that. It's like, because he said he's become a very bitter old man with the game. And like, they were asking him in the interviews, like, what changed you? And he goes, Brendan Bolton, head coach. He made a 61-year-old man feel wanted. And like, you want to see this guy Brendan Bolton, like the head coach, like he would like, he brings like the administrating staff out on the pitch and brings them to a huddle, like people working in the office, like the reception and all, and would say, thank you so much for your work. There was a guy to one of the kit men, and his father, I think his grandfather, passed away, and you just see Brendan Bolton going on the ground saying, how was the funeral? And it's tough, I understand that. And the kit man goes, oh, thanks so much for giving me the time off for the funeral. And Brendan Bolton's like, of course. He's like, it's your granddad. So just like, I think you'd really like that.
We should have him on the podcast.
Yeah, Brendan Bolton. Yeah, I'd say come on. He seems to be pretty cool dude. But listen, we're wrapping on there an hour. I think that's some really, really great material there. So
thanks for the conversation. It's always good to talk about alignment.
Yeah, I love this conversation. So we had good updates there on yourself and OPEX and CCP, and so we got the mixed model digital course and the book coming out. Then we spoke about setting realistic client expectations, spoke a little bit about coach work-life balance. And the final thing I just want to wrap up on is this Functional Fitness Federation in London. Mm-hmm. Will you be there in October?
Yes, I will. Yeah, the World Championships in early October.
I think I'll go over to that.
Awesome. Great to see you.
Yeah, because we haven't seen each other in
I'll
live.
give you a VIP box spot.
Oh, will you?
Yeah, man.
Brilliant stuff. Great stuff. I'll be the only Irish person there not drinking. They'll be like, Gareth, he's a unicorn. That's what boils
Well,
down.
the athletes can't. So,
That's not too bad. But I'm Irish, is what I'm trying to say. I'm Irish and I don't drink. Mike Boyle calls me the unicorn. It's gas. Where he used to introduce me to everyone, and like, you know, Alan Cosgrove or Chris Boyer from Perform Better. He's like, this is Robbie from Ireland. He's a fucking unicorn. They're like, what? He goes, doesn't drink. And they'd be like, get out of here.
no way.
Yeah. So maybe do you want to maybe just before we wrap up, allude to the, I know you've spoken about it once or twice, but we'll probably do a whole podcast on that too, the Functional Fitness Federation, what's going on in London, and maybe just give it a little snapshot. I know about your projections for it in the future, but maybe just wrap on that for a minute or two if you want.
Yeah, to be quick, we have a goal of having functional fitness champions, team and individual champions at the Olympics in 2028. That's our goal. And that's not the only goal for the global nonprofit company. The goal is to create governance around the sport, which it does not have that today, no matter what people think. It does not. And it requires that governance to create viability and sustainability of the sport for two of the major assets, which is the athlete and the coach, not the sponsors or the rigs, or who makes equipment, or who sells supplements, or media. That's not what it's for. So we want to build this grassroots idea on truly making a sport, making mixed modal a sport. And it's been practiced as such, but it hasn't been treated as such. Now we have local, regional, state, national, world, and in the future Olympic championships. And we will have the worlds this year will be represented by numerous countries, individuals and teams. That'll be in early October in London, where we'll crown the world champions. And we're going to continue that every year and continue to build governing bodies until we get up to the 40 plus mark. We're at 30 something right now who are qualified and full governing bodies, but we want to get to 40, and then we sit at the table with IOC or GAIF and have that great conversation on why we believe we want to build this sport and its culture.
Sweet, great stuff. And real quick, finally, are you still taking your break from reading, or are you currently reading any good books?
No, nothing. I'm writing more and
nice.
Out on my just doing some podcasts, the odd AM NPR kind of listen to see what's been going on while walking the dog or paddleboarding or kayaking.
Listen, that was an absolute solid hour of a conversation. This is probably one of my favorites. It was just really enjoyable. So I'll wrap it there. James, as always, thanks so much for your time, and for everyone listening, thank you so much for your earbuds. And for now, from me, Robbie Burke, and from James, peace.
Take care.